So guys, today the US GDP data came for the most recent quarter, that is June 2022. Now this is the second quarter consecutive where the GDP growth has come in negative. So technically this is a sign of a recession in any economy if two continuous quarters of GDP is negative. Now what interesting has happened here is, like if you observe in 2021 when Joe Biden took over, and then gradually from June, July, the inflation was kind of picking up its ugly head. Now inflation is the responsibility of the central bank, and the economy or the GDP growth is the responsibility of the government. Now what happened is, last time when the inflation was going up due to various factors, from supply chain issues, because the world had just come out of the COVID situation, suddenly the demand exploded and the supply chain was not able to cope up. Also the new administration under Joe Biden cancelled the Keystone pipeline, oil pipeline, and various anti-fossil fuel stance of the government. So gradually the coal prices were going up, oil prices were going up. Mind you, Donald Trump, when he did a handover to the Biden administration, so the oil price was nearing $30 to $40. From $30 to $40 per barrel, the oil price shot up to $90 even before the Ukraine war began. So anti-fossil fuel stance led to a spike in oil, coal, etc. And all this led to inflation going up. So at that time, the Fed chairman Powell kind of dismissed the data and called it transitory. He called the inflation transitory. So same thing has happened today when the GDP has come negative for the second consecutive quarter. So since the beginning of this week, so today is Thursday, since beginning of this week from Monday, the White House via its spokesperson was kind of negating the definition of the recession, that is two consecutive quarters of negative GDP growth. They said this is not a correct definition because jobs growth and other stuff is actually doing pretty well. There is a lot of data in US on this front, jobs growth and all that. Also there was the result season has been a bit of mixed. So yesterday post market also there was good stuff from these Google and Microsoft, although the results missed expectations, but the ad revenue and all that was very good for Google, so that kind of supported the Nasdaq yesterday. So today also, when this Dow Jones opened, it actually fell 200 points and then it recovered. So understand one thing, around 48%, so that is close to 50% of total trading in major stock markets of the world, which includes India and NSE and Nifty. So almost 48%, 50% of the trading is done by algorithms. So it's machine trading. So previous policy, when Jerome Powell clearly said, when he clearly said that we will not go for 75 bps hike, and he did a 50 bps hike. So at that time the Dow Jones was in negative, well into negative, and it closed plus 900 points. And then later in June he actually did 75 bps, and then the US Fed minutes came, and it actually, there was an inference from that minutes that Fed hints at a pause. So post September they may pause. And yesterday we had a US Fed monetary policy meet where Jerome Powell actually did a 75 bps hike. He also gave a projection that will continue with these kind of hikes, although he said that would be data dependent. So there was a touch of dovish thought into that. So that led to kind of massive spike in the global markets yesterday as well as today, because the policy meet was at 11:30 p.m. India time yesterday. So all the impact came today, and we saw what happened. Similarly now, when the US GDP data came, as I said, it already got negated. Since the beginning of the week, the White House was kind of giving statements that this old school definition does not hold good. So stock market, understand one thing, is all about perception. It's not about realities. It's all about perceptions. And when perceptions become reality, that is where the impact sets in. So earlier there was a perception from the, or the perception kind of was developed and given to the markets by the US Fed that inflation is transitory. Then much later, Janet Yellen, who is the Treasury Secretary or kind of Finance Minister of US, she said we were wrong on the inflation, that it is transitory, it is not. Because coupled with supply chain effects, there was also a shortage of major agri as well as non-agri commodities due to Ukraine war and sanctions which followed on Russia post that. And Russia is kind of exporter of almost everything under the sun. They export fertilizers, they export wheat, they export food grains, they export fruits, they export oil, gas, coal, gold, almost everything. So inflation is not transitory, and that is now a history. That thought is now a history, that inflation is here to stay. But Jerome Powell yesterday, he never said that inflation is transitory again. What he said is future hikes would be data dependent. So most recently, when the oil price actually crashed from 120, 130 to below 100, the pump prices in United States actually fell. So the average pump prices, which was beyond $5 per gallon, currently it is near about $4 per gallon. So that actually gave a soothing effect that maybe from next, maybe in the next quarter, that is July to September quarter, inflation is kind of plateau, or it will kind of find a top. Although inflation in the developed countries from Eurozone to UK to US has been kind of unprecedented. Beyond 9% is kind of unbelievable for them. And such kind of inflation was seen only 45 years back. So today's thought is extremely clear here. The data actually got negated earlier on the inflation front, and the rally continued. When the inflation was not seen as transitory, and the perception actually, the reality actually turned into perception, and perception became a reality, the market started to correct. From October, market started to correct from October massively. And FII selling in India also started at a wholesale scale from October. And then the Ukraine war set in. And actually bear market began. Now we have seen various within bear market rallies, and mind you, bear market rallies can be extremely violent on the upside and pretty quick, like we have seen today, almost 300 points in Nifty we observed. So now we'll talk about Nifty, and especially we'll talk about the swing levels, because swing levels is where the algorithms get triggered. So 16400 was a very big massive swing level. When it got taken out, on the futures front as we speak, we are almost beyond 17,000. So 17,003 was a very old and established swing level. Now if you look at, this is the daily chart. This is what generally people look at. So the 200 SMA is 17,029. So if this is taken out, then we have other levels which could be seen pretty easily, and that could be 17,400. So we have seen here 17,400 hit many times, and then the close was kind of below it. So if this swing level of 17,003, which is a very old level, then you add to the current 200 SMA, which is 17,029. So if this is taken out, 17,029 is taken out on a closing basis. So closing basis means any close at 3:15 p.m. because after 3:15 p.m. to 3:30, the 15 minutes is a averaging time. So usually whatever the close of Nifty or any stock is at 3:15, usually that, and plus minus 5-7 points, and the close comes or the settlement comes at 3:31. So 17,029 is the immediate level which we see here, that is 200 SMA, and if that is taken out, 17,400 is kind of a given. So if the Nifty fails at 17,029, then kind of new shorts can be initiated with the same stop loss, that is 17,029. So tomorrow if the market opens, if you look at the SGX Nifty, say 17,033 or 17,040, but kind of closes at say 17,000 or 16,980, something like that. So you can initiate a short there with a stop loss on a closing basis, that is again 3:15 of the next day, of 17,029. But if the market closes tomorrow beyond 17,029, then you cannot stop this market, because that will be a frenzied buying by the algorithms, and algorithms actually are machines and they have no emotions at all. So they'll keep buying an index or a stock which performs, and they will keep selling an index or a stock which underperforms. Same thing we have observed in Adani stocks. So this is the main conclusion for today. So 17,029, if it is not taken out at 3:15 tomorrow, then you can initiate a short at say 3:20, 3:25 p.m. and wait for the action the next day, that is Monday. But tomorrow if 17,029 is taken out pretty comfortably, then 17,400 is kind of a given, it will come for sure. So we'll just conclude here with the same thought which we began this video, is that stock market is all about perception. What the decision makers think, or what these decision makers want you to think, in which direction they want you to think. So the Fed in 2021 want you to believe that inflation is transitory. Then it got hammered post the Ukraine war, and kind of inflation has become structural there, kind of ingrained in the system. Now these 2 quarters of GDP decline is now being negated by the US government, the White House, or the spokesperson of the White House. So unless the third quarter GDP also declines, so which is a long way to go, around 3 months from here. So this chatter will kind of continue and markets will react henceforth going ahead negatively only in case of statements which these US Fed speakers give. Also the developments of the Ukraine war and the oil and gas scenario. And just most important thing is what I want all of you guys to make a note is November is what the official winter season begins in the Western world, because they kind of calibrate their clocks by 1 hour to adjust to lower sunlight time, so daylight saving and all that stuff that begins. So winter can be pretty severe this time, because we have seen how severe the summer has been in the southern part of US as well as entire Europe, almost 40 plus degree temperatures, and many people actually lost lives there. But in winter, because in summer you can kind of save yourself by spending time in the water, on the beach, in swimming pools, but in winter you just cannot unless you have pretty good heating available, because the winter is pretty severe, nail biting cold, frost biting cold. So from the November month we can see some very serious life and death scenarios in the developed world, considering the shortage of natural gas, oil, coal, and their governments have advised their citizens to kind of stock up wood for the winter heating and all that stuff. So let's see how this unfolds when the winter begins. But till the next policy meet or the next GDP print, this chatter will continue. That is the perception what they want us to believe into. So the perception is there is no recession, although 2 quarters of GDP have shown a negative print, because the job growth has been pretty strong. So there is no joblessness scenario. This is what the White House wants you to believe. And Jerome Powell kind of yesterday gave a dovish tilt where he said that future course of action will be data dependent, and the rate hikes also can mellow down from 75 to maybe 50, but he just kept that door open. So on the both the front, inflation and GDP front, now the scenario is from the market perspective is kind of buy the dip scenario. But as I explained a moment back, if this 17,029 200 SMA is failed to achieve on Friday tomorrow, then you can very well initiate shorts with this same stop loss 17,029, because if this is taken out, 17,400 is kind of given without a doubt. So just keep this in mind, guys, and thank you very much.